Hey, how's work? Let me guess. You woke up, you hit snooze 3 times, spilled coffee on your 1 clean shirt, and now you're 8 Outlook messages deep into pretending you're super focused while mentally rewatching an entire Netflix season. Yeah, same. Look, I get it. Work these days is rough. Office politics, endless meetings that could have been an email, and that one coworker who thinks, let's circle back, is an appropriate thing to say to another human being. But before you rage quit your job and move to a cabin in the woods, let's put things in perspective. Because history had a real job problem. Like, hope you don't spontaneously combust problem. Or, this gig pays in bread and broken bones kind of problem. I'm Thrive, and today we're continuing our historical job series. If you haven't caught the first video in this series, well, why not? And if you need it, it's right there. Or there. Somewhere. Taking a beautiful, terrible tour through some of history's toughest, weirdest, and most absolutely no thank you jobs. And we're asking one very important question. Would you survive these jobs? Let's get into this. The human matchstick. Let's start with something soft, feminine, graceful, like facial bone death. Meet the Matchstick Girls of Victorian London. These were teenage girls who dipped match heads into white phosphorus all day, every day. White phosphorus, by the way, is the kind of chemical that lights up like fireworks and melts human tissue like it's an off-brand candle. These girls would come home glowing, and not in a "you're radiant, sis" way, but more like your jawbone is literally rotting out of your face. They called it Fossy Jaw. And yeah, it's as cute as it sounds. Painful, stinky, and fatal. Would you survive? Maybe, if your skincare routine includes not breathing toxic gases and your boss isn't an 1800s factory owner named Mr. Corpse Breath. The floating bomb closet. Now, let's set sail. Back in the golden age of naval warfare, wooden ships ruled the sea, and nothing said party like firing 48 cannons at once. Enter the powder magazine attendant. Last video we talked about the powder monkey. This was the person in the room. Their job? Sit in a tiny room below deck filled to the brim with gunpowder and calmly hand out explosive materials to the people doing the shooting. No sparks allowed, no metal buckles, sometimes no clothes, just a guy in his birthday suit, tiptoeing barefoot on a creaky wooden ship with a box of explosives. What could go wrong? If the enemy hits the powder room, goodbye boat, goodbye eyebrows, goodbye everything. Would you survive? Sure, if you're really chill in high-pressure situations. And also fireproof. That would help. Knocking you up at 4 a.m. No, not like that. Never liked that movie for some reason. We're talking about the knocker-upper. It was a real job. From real history. Back before alarm clocks, these folks would walk through the streets at dawn, banging on windows with long sticks or pea shooters to wake people up for work. It was basically Uber Eats, but for noise and resentment. You had to wake up before the people you were waking up, and then hope they didn't throw things at you, or lie about whether you showed up at all, or just ignore you entirely and go back to sleep while you stood there poking the window like a depressed bird. Would you survive? Well, only if your passion in life is to be deeply unpopular before sunrise, which honestly explains most of my days. The Rat Man Cometh. Now let's head underground to the sewers, where dreams go to die. Meet the rat catcher. Victorian London was crawling with rats, like actually crawling. You couldn't swing a teacup without hitting a flea-riddled plague goblin. So cities hired rat catchers, people who literally chased rats down alleyways, basements, sewers. Sometimes they used dogs, sometimes they used ferrets. Yeah, real ferrets. And sometimes they just used their bare hands. It was dangerous, it was disgusting, and very much the kind of job you'd only take if your life had already fallen apart. Twice. Bonus fact, some rat catchers released rats back into the city so they could catch them again. That's right, rat crime and rat capitalism. Would you survive? Depends. How do you feel about biting, being bitten, and biting back? The human alarm system again. Just kidding. Still not over the knocker-upper. Honestly, that job deserves a second mention. Waking people up for a living? No, thank you. Moving on. Children and the chimney. Now let's check in on the Victorian kids, shall we? Here's a fun job. Chimney sweep. Tiny children were sent into narrow chimneys to clean out soot with their bare hands, while the fireplace was still kind of warm, sometimes still lit. They'd get stuck, they'd inhale soot, they'd fall, sometimes they didn't make it out, and if they survived, they'd often ended up with soot wart, a fancy term for chimney cancer. Would you survive? Nope. You'd sue the entire country, as you should. Spend to win. Your fingers. Next Next up, the mule spinner. Not an actual mule. This was a person working as a massive, terrifying machine during the Industrial Revolution. The spinning mule twisted cotton into yarn and occasionally twisted humans into spaghetti. If the machine jammed, you had to reach in and fix it while it was running. Kids were great for this because their hands were small. Also, disposable. Yay, history. And if the cotton dust didn't choke you out, you still had the joy of going home covered in oil, deafened by clanging metal, and missing a finger or two. Would you survive? Maybe. If you identify as very bendy and somewhat okay with never hearing again. Lime? I hardly know her. Sorry, couldn't help it. Let's talk about lime burners. These folks made quick lime by burning limestone at high temperatures in open kilns. The result? Blistering heat, clouds of caustic dust, and the constant threat of spontaneous combustion. Quick lime is no joke. It reacts violently with water, including the kind in your eyeballs, your lungs,
and your soul.
You know it's a bad job when your best case scenario is only mildly on fire. Would you survive? Only if you're flame retardant and emotionally detached. The glowing jaw returns. Let's take one more trip to the Matchstick girl life, just to remind ourselves that labor laws didn't always exist and people used to literally glow with decay. Still better than some TikTok influencer houses though. Just saying. Welcome to the hot seat. Finally, meet the executioner. Your job? Kill people. Neatly. Publicly. While a giant crowd screams boo and possibly throws cabbage. If you miss the neck by even an inch, the crowd turns on you. And ghosts? Probably not thrilled either. Also, you were socially isolated. Like, people will cross the street to avoid you. You were essential to the justice system and about as popular as a DMV line on a Tuesday. Would you survive? Only if you're okay being both feared and alone, with excellent axe control. So how's your job looking now? After this delightful little sprint through history's nightmare internships, how do you feel about your current gig? Still hate it? Cool, that's valid. But maybe it's not quite as bad as being a glowing-jawed, soot-choked, rat-wrangling powder goblin with a lime dust addiction and no social life. And that, my friend, is growth. Would you survive these jobs? Probably not. But the good news is, you don't have to. So next time your boss sends you a 14-paragraph email about printer toner, just remember, at least you're not naked in a floating bomb closet handing out explosives. Count your blessings, man. Or at least your limbs. Hey, thanks for watching. And if you made it this far, you're probably tougher than most of history's workforce already anyway. So hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Which of these jobs would you actually try? And which one made you want to delete time itself? Catch you next time for more weird, wild, wonderfully miserable slices of history. Until then, keep your jaw intact and your limbs accounted for. Like if you like, sub if you sub, share if you share. I'm Thrive. Bye.